Kilauea is erupting with a fury not seen in decades, and what just exploded from inside this volcano has sent shockwaves through the scientific community. On February 15th, 2026, twin columns of molten rock shot more than 1,000 feet into the Hawaiian sky. The eruption blasted an ash cloud to 35,000 feet above sea level, high enough to threaten commercial aircraft crossing the Pacific Ocean. The National Weather Service confirmed the altitude. Aviation authorities scrambled to issue immediate warnings. But here is what volcanologists are now struggling to explain. This was not a one-time explosion. It was episode 42, the 42nd eruption in a rapid-fire sequence that has been accelerating since December of 2024. The episodes are intensifying as a whole, with recent ones rivaling the most powerful fountaining events in Kilauea's recorded history. The pauses between episodes typically last 1 to 3 weeks. The magma fueling these blasts is rising from a reservoir so deep that it connects Kilauea to the largest active volcano on the planet, Mauna Loa. Two volcanoes sharing a single engine of destruction, and the pressure feeding both of them continues to build with no sign of slowing down. February 15th, 2026, 1:50 in the afternoon, Hawaii Standard Time. The floor of Halemaʻumaʻu crater fractures along two separate vents inside the summit caldera. Within minutes, twin fountains of incandescent lava erupt from both the north and south openings simultaneously. The south vent dominates from the start. Its fountain climbs to approximately 1,300 feet, nearly a quarter-mile of liquid rock suspended in the air above the crater. The north vent reaches roughly 1,000 feet. By 2:40 in the afternoon, the south fountain overtakes the north and holds the lead for the remainder of the eruption. At peak intensity near 3 in the afternoon, the combined thermal output from both fountains generates a towering eruption column that the National Weather Service measures at 10,600 meters above sea level, the equivalent of nearly 7 miles straight up, well into the zone where commercial jet aircraft fly. Scientists at the United States Geological Survey's Hawaiian Volcano Observatory record the peak lava discharge rate at approximately 780 cubic meters per second. That translates to roughly 1,000 cubic yards of molten basalt surging from the earth every single second. Over the course of 9 hours and 48 minutes, the eruption pours an estimated 11.4 million cubic meters of lava across the crater floor, coating approximately half of Halemaʻumaʻu's surface. Tilt meters at the summit register 33.7 microradians of deflation as the magma chamber rapidly empties. Fine volcanic ash and delicate strands of glassy Pele's hair drift southwest on the trade winds, falling on communities as far as Pahala, Punalu, and Nalehu. Sulfur dioxide emissions spike to an estimated 100,000 tons per day, thickening the air across the southern half of the Big Island with choking volcanic smog. But episode 42 is not an isolated event. It is merely the latest pulse in an intensifying sequence that scientists say is revealing something fundamental about the forces at work deep beneath Hawaii. To understand why this eruption matters, you have to understand the volcano that produced it and the catastrophe that reshaped it less than a decade ago. Kilauea rises on the southeastern flank of the Big Island of Hawaii. It is a shield volcano built by hundreds of thousands of years of eruptions, fueled by one of the most powerful geological engines on Earth. The name means spewing or much spreading in Hawaiian, and the volcano has earned that title across centuries of recorded history. Kilauea has erupted at least 61 times since 1823. Scientists classify it as active for roughly 90% of the past 1,100 years. The United States Geological Survey gives Kilauea the highest volcanic threat score of any volcano in the entire nation at 263 points, reflecting both its extreme activity level and the large population living on its slopes. The source of Kilauea's relentless power lies far beneath the Pacific Ocean floor. A mantle plume, A persistent column of superheated rock rises from near the boundary between Earth's core and mantle, a depth of nearly 3,000 kilometers. The Pacific tectonic plate drifts northwest over this stationary hotspot at approximately 7 centimeters per year, roughly the speed at which a human fingernail grows. As the plate creeps forward, the plume punches through the crust and builds new volcanic islands in succession. This process has been constructing the Hawaiian island chain for more than 80 million years. The result is a 6,200-kilometer trail of islands and submerged seamounts stretching northwest across the Pacific floor. The PLUME experiment deployed 73 ocean-bottom seismometers across the Hawaiian sea floor and confirmed the deep plume's existence by imaging the thermal anomaly extending more than 1,500 kilometers into the mantle. Kilauea is the youngest and most active product of this ancient assembly line. It erupts tholeiitic basalt at temperatures reaching approximately 1,170 degrees Celsius, roughly 2,140 degrees Fahrenheit. The lava typically emerges as smooth, ropey pahoaho and may transition into rough, jagged aya as it flows and cools. Beneath Halemaʻumaʻu crater, the volcano's internal plumbing is extraordinarily complex. A shallow magma reservoir sits 1 to 2 kilometers below the surface. A larger storage zone occupies 3 to 5 kilometers below the surface. In 2014, researchers at the University of Miami discovered a deep magma body, 8 to 11 kilometers below the surface, a zone of partially molten rock they described as magma mush, containing approximately 10% liquid melt trapped within a 90% solid crystal matrix. This layered system feeds eruptions at the summit and channels magma laterally through 2 rift zones that extend outward from the volcano like arms. The East Rift Zone stretches roughly 125 kilometers, with about 50 kilometers on land and the remainder continuing beneath the ocean. The Southwest Rift Zone extends 35 to 40 kilometers. These underground conduits can deliver magma far from the summit and erupt with limited advance warning, placing communities along the entire length of the rift at potential risk. Kilauea's south flank, constantly pushed seaward by magma intruding into the rift zones, creeps oceanward at 6 to 10 centimeters per year along a basal fault 7 to 9 kilometers below the surface. This relentless movement is the source of the volcano's largest and most damaging earthquakes. Kilauea is not the gentle volcano that popular imagination suggests. Hawaiian oral tradition and geological fieldwork both document periods when the mountain shifted violently from quiet lava flows to catastrophic explosions. In 1790, a phreatomagmatic eruption at the summit sent pyroclastic surges racing across the caldera at hurricane-force speeds. Warriors and families from the army of Kewakūāhula were caught in the open and killed. Estimates of the dead range from 80 to more than 400 people. It remains the deadliest volcanic event in United States history. Human footprints preserved in the hardened volcanic ash near the summit are still visible today, frozen in their final steps. Research by United States Geological Survey geologist Don Swanson revealed that explosive eruptions dominated Kilauea for roughly 2,500 years. The quiet, effusive volcano that tourists visit is only one face of a mountain capable of lethal violence. The modern era of Kilauea's eruptive fury began on January 3, 1983, when the Pu'u eruption opened on the Middle East Rift Zone. It would become the longest-lived Rift Zone eruption in at least 200 years and the most voluminous East Rift Zone outpouring in more than 500 years. The initial high fountaining phase between 1983 and 1986 featured 44 episodes of spectacular lava fountaining. Jets of molten rock reached heights of 1,500 to 1,673 feet. Each episode lasted roughly half a day, separated by pauses of 3 to 4 weeks, as pressure rebuilt in the shallow magma chamber. The cycle was remarkably predictable. Seismometers would detect a swarm of small earthquakes beneath the rift zone, Tilt meters would register inflation, and within hours the next fountain would erupt. These fountains were staggering in scale, but they did not surpass the existing record. In 1959, the Kilauea eruption had produced the highest lava fountains ever measured at this volcano. During its 15th episode on December 17th of that year, fountains reached approximately 1,900 feet, nearly a third of a mile straight up. The Kilauea eruption also filled its crater with a lava lake 414 feet deep, a body of molten rock that took decades to fully solidify. After 1986, the Pu'u eruption shifted from dramatic fountaining to continuous quiet effusion. Over 35 years, this single eruption produced 4.4 cubic kilometers of lava, covered 144 square kilometers of land, added 439 acres of new coastline to the island, and destroyed 215 structures. The community of Royal Gardens was completely buried. Much of the coastal village of Kalapana vanished beneath advancing flows. Pu'u continued erupting without significant pause until April 30th, 2018, when the vent cone suddenly collapsed and set in motion the most destructive volcanic event Hawaii had experienced in over 200 years. Within days of the Pu'u collapse, magma migrated down the East Rift Zone toward Lower Puna. On May 3, 2018, the first fissure cracked open in Leilani Estates, a residential subdivision built directly on the volcano's flank. Over the following weeks, 24 fissures tore open along a 6.8-kilometer stretch of the Lower East Rift Zone. On May 4th, a magnitude 6.9 earthquake struck Kilauea's south flank. It was the largest earthquake to hit Hawaii in more than 4 decades. The quake produced approximately 5 meters of fault displacement and triggered a small tsunami. At the summit, the lava lake that had glowed inside Halemaʻumaʻu for a decade began draining at catastrophic speed. By May 10th, it had dropped more than 325 meters below the crater rim and vanished from sight. On May 17th, at approximately 4:15 in the morning, a massive explosive event launched an ash plume to 30,000 feet above sea level. It was the largest summit explosion since 1924 and prompted the first ashfall advisory ever issued by the National Weather Service for the state of Hawaii. Fissure 8 became the dominant vent by late May. It produced sustained lava fountains of 200 to 300 feet and fed a channelized river of molten rock that traveled 13 kilometers to the coast. The initial lava was cooler and more viscous, old magma that had been stored in the rift zone for decades. But as hotter, fresher magma arrived directly from the summit reservoir, the eruption's character transformed. Flow rates surged. The lava river widened and accelerated. On June 2nd, the advancing flow evaporated Green Lake, Hawaii's largest natural freshwater lake, consuming it in a matter of hours as massive plumes of steam rose from the site. On June 3rd, lava reached the ocean at Kapaho Bay, completely filling the bay within 2 days and erasing it from the map. At the summit, 62 near-daily caldera collapse events hammered the region between May 29th and August 2nd. Each collapse released energy equivalent to roughly a magnitude 5.3 earthquake. More than 60,000 individual earthquakes accompanied these collapses over the course of the summer. The caldera floor dropped more than 500 meters. Halemaʻumaʻu crater, which had been roughly 1 kilometer wide and 85 meters deep, expanded to 2.5 kilometers wide and 500 meters deep. The total volume of rock that collapsed into the emptying magma chamber measured approximately 0.8 cubic kilometers, precisely quantified at 0.836 cubic kilometers using airborne radar. The total lava erupted from the Lower East Rift Zone, including massive submarine lava deltas extending offshore, measured between 0.9 and 1.5 cubic kilometers. Scientists estimated this represented roughly a decade's worth of Kilauea's normal magma supply, discharged in just 3 months. The eruption ceased at Fissure 8 around August 4th, 2018. No active lava was observed after September 5th. The USGS officially declared the eruption over on December 5th. The eruption destroyed 716 homes. Approximately 2,000 to 3,000 residents were displaced from their neighborhoods. Lava buried more than 35 square kilometers of land, while simultaneously creating 875 acres of new coastline where ocean had been. The communities of Vacation Land and Kapaho beach lots were completely wiped from the landscape. Total economic losses exceeded $800 million, including $236.5 million in destroyed public infrastructure, $415 million in lost tourism revenue, and nearly $28 million in agricultural damage. Roughly 35% of Hawaii's papaya farms were buried beneath lava. The Puna geothermal venture power plant, which had supplied up to 31% of the Big Island's electricity, was forced offline. Hawaii Volcanoes National Park closed for 134 days. Sulfur dioxide emissions reached nearly 200,000 tons per day at peak output, the highest ever recorded at Kīlauea. The toxic volcanic haze drifted more than 6,000 kilometers across the Pacific, reaching as far as Guam. When lava poured into the ocean, it created lays, corrosive plumes of hydrochloric acid, steam, and microscopic shards of volcanic glass. Remarkably, not a single person died during the entire 3-month eruption. The most serious mass injury occurred on July 16th, when a lava bomb struck a tour boat at the ocean entry point, injuring 23 passengers, one of them seriously. USGS scientist in charge, Tina Neal, credited effective early warning and rapid community response for preventing fatalities. The eruption disproportionately affected low-income communities. Nearly 30% of Lower Puna residents lived below the poverty level, and many lacked homeowners insurance that covered volcanic damage. Federal recovery funding eventually exceeded $84 million from the Department of Housing and Urban Development alone, with additional state and federal grants pushing the total beyond $100 million. As of 2026, the neighborhoods of Vacation Land and Kapaho beach lots remain uninhabitable, their streets buried under meters of hardened basalt. For Native Hawaiians, the eruption carried profound cultural significance that transcended the physical destruction. Pele, the goddess of fire and volcanoes, is believed to reside within Halemaʻumaʻu. Residents placed offerings of food, lei, and tea leaves at the advancing fissures, honoring the eruption as Pele reshaping her own domain. Many Hawaiians spoke not of destruction, but of renewal, the ancient process by which the islands are continuously reborn through volcanic fire. What scientists confirmed in 2025 transforms the stakes of Kilauea's current eruption sequence entirely. A landmark study led by geochemist Aaron Pietruska at the University of Hawaii, published in the Journal of Petrology, analyzed nearly 200 years of lava chemistry from both Kilauea and Mauna Loa. The results demonstrated that melt from a shared mantle plume source alternates between the two volcanoes on timescales of decades. When one volcano receives more magma from the deep plume, the other receives less. The study found that since approximately 2010, geochemical signatures in Kilauea's lava indicate the deep melt supply has been shifting toward Mauna Loa. This finding aligned precisely with Mauna Loa's dramatic eruption in November 2022, the volcano's first activity in 38 years. A separate 2022 study published in Scientific Reports found that the anti-correlated eruption pattern between the two mountains is best explained by a stress transfer mechanism. When one volcano inflates and erupts, the resulting changes in crustal stress directly affect the magma pathways feeding its neighbor. The volcanoes communicate through the rock that separates them. This plumbing system casts the current summit eruption sequence in a profoundly different light. Since December 23, 2024, Kilauea has erupted 42 times in short, intense bursts, progressively refilling the enormous void carved by the 2018 collapse. The pattern is strikingly similar to the 1959 Kilauea eruption, which also featured multiple episodes of fountaining separated by pauses. But the current sequence has already produced far more episodes, each separated by only brief weeks of quiet. 5 eruptions between 2020 and 2023 had already deposited approximately 410 meters of new lava inside Halemaʻumaʻu, replacing more than 80% of the depth lost during the collapse. The current fountaining series is accelerating that rebuilding process with increasing vigor. Episode 41, which erupted on January 24th and 25th, set the record for this entire sequence, with fountains reaching approximately 1,600 feet, the tallest at Kilauea since the Pu'u era. Episode 42 followed just 3 weeks later with comparable ferocity. 2 rift zone eruptions in 2024 confirmed that the pressurized system extends well beyond the summit. On June 3rd, lava broke through on the upper southwest rift zone. On September 15th, an eruption near Nepal crater on the Middle East rift zone lasted 5 days. These intrusions proved that Kilauea's entire magmatic network remains charged and capable of erupting at multiple locations. The Hawaiian Volcano Observatory monitors Kilauea continuously using more than 100 remote field stations, transmitting data around the clock. The network includes seismometers, GPS receivers, tilt meters, gas analyzers, webcams, gravity instruments, and satellite-based radar interferometry systems. This infrastructure detected the precursors to every recent episode and enables scientists to forecast eruption windows days in advance. The USGS has issued a forecast for episode 43 between March 2nd and 14th, 2026, based on the characteristic inflation-deflation cycle observed at the summit. The central question now facing scientists is not whether Kilauea will erupt again. That much is certain. The question is what form the next eruption will take and where it will emerge. If the intensifying summit fountaining continues on its current trajectory, lava could eventually overtop the Halemaʻumaʻu rim and flow across the broader caldera floor toward park roads, visitor facilities, and monitoring infrastructure. If pressurized magma instead exploits a weakness along one of the rift zones, communities on the volcano's flanks face a scenario with direct parallels to 2018. Mauna Loa adds an additional variable. The volcano continues to show measurable inflation on its GPS network, and the confirmed deep magma connection means that changes in one system inevitably influence the other. The Big Island's 200,000 residents live between these linked volcanoes. Tourism infrastructure, agricultural lands, geothermal energy facilities, and residential communities all occupy ground that lava has covered within living memory. Emergency managers continue building on the hard lessons of Puna's devastation, refining evacuation routes and shelter capacity for districts that could be cut off by future flows. The mantle plume beneath Hawaii is among the longest-lived volcanic engines on the planet and shows no sign of weakening. Kilauea sits directly above its most concentrated output, the most active volcanic vent in the entire Pacific Basin. Its eruptions are occurring with increasing frequency and reaching intensities that rival the volcano's historic high fountaining eras. Its depleted magma chamber is refilling at rates scientists can measure in real time. And the deep reservoir it shares with Mauna Loa introduces a coupling effect that no existing eruption model can fully account for. Episode 42 has ended. The lava has cooled to black glass on the crater floor, but fresh magma is already ascending toward the vents that will crack open again. Whether that rupture stays safely contained within the summit or migrates toward populated rift zones is the question that keeps scientists at the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory watching their instruments through every hour of every night.